Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, 𝗔𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗲𝗀, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. So if you're plugging in here right now, this is the 7 hidden mistakes keeping you stuck with belly fat after 40. Now, I'm actually excited about today's live because I want to, mention that yes, a lot of my lives are very, very high research, a lot of really amazing information. But this one will be a little bit more on a more practical side, which is very good for all of you. However, I think this is the thing I really want you guys to understand is like, no matter how much information you learn or know, it's not about the information, it's about the application, which is really going to be a lot of things I reiterate throughout this live, because that's why this particular one, I was like, okay, you've already known about DNAs and within the cellular structure, which hormone with whichever, but this is why is it so many of you still cannot drop your belly? So this is going to be actually a really, really cool live. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm going to be using a lot of case studies of my clients. You're welcome. You will be the stars of my today's live. Many of you, we're going to be talking about lots and lots of case studies. So before I dive into it, I do want to give a shout out to some wins. Again, this is the Fierce Woman Community Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. And we are a community dedicated to women above 40, particularly in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, to help them achieve their leanest and fiercest body. Now, not everybody would say, I just want to lose my belly. It's not like, I always say it's not like the sexiest topic, but what people want is they want to look good. They want to feel good. They want to see themselves in the mirror and be proud of their body, be proud of the body they have, lean, flat stomach, looking good in their clothes, in their bikini, whatever it is, right? So that's what this really is about. So I don't know about you. It's pretty inspiring. It's pretty encouraging to hear all these women changing. And like I said, everything I teach comes from real life case studies. And this is what I'm going to talk about. It's going to be a little bit different, is the 7 hidden mistakes that keeping you from your belly fat, stuck with your belly fat after 40. Okay. I'm going to be using it more like 7 case studies. Now, there's a lot of multiple people in each section, okay, and maybe 1 or 2 I may have forgotten. Sometimes I mix my clients up, but anyways, the generalities will be the same, okay. So we're going to actually look at not just the mistakes, but actually at like 7 different case scenarios that you're going to look at, okay. So the first thing is I want to use 𝗦𝗁𝗁𝗃𝗀𝗃, who has amazing results right now. She messaged me and says, I woke up this morning and I was trying to look for my love handles. Isn't that funny? I was like, oh my gosh. Her love handles has disappeared, so she couldn't find them anymore. So 𝗦𝗁𝗁𝗃𝗀𝗃, also in my transformation program. And then Leslie Bennett. I want to talk about these two because now, I see this specific situation a lot, but I want to specifically talk about it because it's kind of at the top of my mind. So one of the most common mistakes I see is not eating enough to fuel the body and for what you're actually doing. Now, both Leslie and Meg were similar, but Meg works on a farm. She has to do some pretty heavy stuff throughout the day. And what she was eating was nowhere near enough. Now, this is super common because most of the women I coach, when they initially, if they don't track, some of them do track, but they really get down to tracking, you start to see your calories and it's not a lot. And just as an example, Meg is only at maybe 1,100 calories, and she was telling me the other day, and because she's the most closest scenario, but yeah, I'm just not really hungry. I'm not really hungry. And I know that you guys hear me say this a lot, and then I'm always like, that's really not a good signal. That's a bad signal. Yes, because there's a really big problem. We're going to talk about it. And Leslie Bennett is a great example too, because I remember the beginning of her program, again, not a huge amount of calories, but she was like, Clarice, I can't eat more. I'm going to throw up. I literally have that SMS message. I could even post it one day. She's like, if I eat more, I will throw up. And I was like, I said, okay. I said, you're going to try. You're going to try to eat more. Eat a little by little. You're going to try to eat more. Okay. So why is this a big problem? Because number one, your the signal that you're having that you're not hungry is indicating substantial ghrelin and leptin dysfunction, that your ghrelin and leptins are impaired. Okay, so what happens as you go into menopause and you have chronic stress, and maybe you're dieting, you're trying to figure out how to drop this belly fat, or you're just doing different things, you're going to alter your ghrelin and your leptin. And a lot of times your leptin signal becomes impaired, which is the feeling of being full. And so your body will say, I'm not hungry, but at the same time, you're not nourished. And so this is the problem, is your body is telling you're not hungry, but your body is not getting the nutrients it needs. And so this is going to lead to a few situations, few things. Number one, you're going to have metabolic adaptation. Okay. So this is something I talk a lot about. Your metabolic adaptation means your total body's energy expenditure will drop. And this total energy expenditure will drop, meaning your resting metabolic rate will drop. Your NEAT, so the calories you burn in everyday life, will drop. Like before, in your 2030s, maybe your NEAT would be, just for example, 500 to 600 calories. When you're older, because of this situation happening, you playing with that metabolism and the signals, it may only drop to 200 calories instead of 500, right? And more importantly, when this happens, when you're not eating enough, or your caloric and all that, you will play with your conversions. So your T4 to T3 conversions will drop. So your thyroid conversions drop off. Okay. So this causes what I call reduced metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is your body's ability to shift from carbs to fats to carbs very quickly. When you're young, your body can do just that. So it's super easy for your body to change what fuel sources, where it's getting its fuel sources. But as you get older, your metabolic flexibility drops, and the number one signal is usually, I'm not hungry. Who here, is there anybody who relates to that? Like, yeah, like a lot of times I just don't feel hungry, but I still have a belly. Anybody relate to that? Put relate if you relate to that. I don't feel hungry, but I still struggle with a belly. Okay. So what happens when your metabolic flexibility drops is your body becomes efficient at holding on to fat. Okay, because it's like not flexible, right? And then if you don't have enough fuel, and Meg is a very good example. She does a lot in her day, she's doing farm work and stuff like that. And yet when she came to me, I remember, I know I have a picture of her belly. I see her belly. You would think the amount of work that she does, that she moves around, that she burns calories, that she wouldn't have a belly, but she is holding on to a belly. And another thing I had said to Meg is, if you're doing so much and you're under eating like this, you're going to cause another major situation to happen, which is that you're going to have muscle loss. And the muscle loss will lead to impaired GLUT4 transport. GLUT4 transport, if you listen to Ashoni's live, is the doorway that transports sugar into your muscle cells. Okay. And so when you are underfueled in your way you're eating, your calories, your protein, and actually I can actually point out Jackie right now too, but she's much better now. I'm just saying though, I was specifically even saying to her just that like a few days ago or whatever, make sure your calories are hitting the numbers need to hit what I tell you to. And she was saying, okay, like we had a back and forth, but is that when you don't have your right calories or your numbers, your GLUT4 transporters are fewer and your carbs have nowhere to go. And your carbs will end up going more towards your fat, towards being stored as fat. So when you undereat, you basically are encouraging signaling towards fat storage, right? And and then as well as when you undereat, you create an internal stressor in your body. So there's low energy, your cortisol rises, and chronic cortisol, because of the receptors in your belly fat areas, is very attracted to cortisol base. Okay, I talked about this in my visceral fat live. So it promotes visceral fat and increases insulin resistance. So you may see sometimes, maybe you or people around you may see a lot of women try to be very disciplined. Maybe they try to be more disciplined. They're like, yeah, like I'm gonna eat better. I want to eat better. But your body doesn't see like under eating as discipline, it sees it as stress. Okay. And so you can eat very little. Okay. This is something I want to say again. You can eat very little and still end up with belly because of this particular reason. Okay. So this is exact like sort of like Meg. Honestly, part of her problem was not eating enough. It was a big problem with Leslie Bennett. And her body has shut her body down so much that, remember I said, she even was like, she's an amazing student. Like she did everything I want, but it was very hard. She was like, I can't eat more, Clarice. And I'm like, you're going to eat more. So I want you guys to understand this, because this is like, I forget who I just spoken to, but it was like, you can't trust your body's ghrelin and leptin signals sometimes in your menopausal state. Okay. So case study number one, and number one mistake is not eating enough calories, not getting enough of the nutrition you need. And so this really causes a problem with your metabolism and everything. So I think this is the thing we need to really, really get a hold of. I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, I'm not overeating. I'm not eating like crazy stuff, but why do I still have a belly? And this is what it helps you understand. Okay. So I often get asked, then what caloric range should I be in? And the answer to this is, it really will depend on how you train. What is your training type? What is your lifestyle and workload? What is your current hormone response level? To be honest, this is the thing I always say, is that it's not that you are not disciplined, or you're overeating, you're being like overindulgent. To be honest, most of the women I work with are actually incredibly disciplined and very like hardcore, care about their health, work out, try to care about the food they eat. That is actually most of the women I work with, because most of the people who actually follow me know I'm not a super easy coach, in the sense of like, it's not like, oh yeah, anything goes. Most of them who follow me know that I require you to do some work. Yeah, that there is some work. So I have really hardworking women who come to me, and you guys really work hard, but for some reason, no matter what you do, you just cannot shift that belly. And so you're just coming back to the caloric count of what your body needs. It depends on the training type, your lifestyle, your workload, your hormone response, and your current metabolic state. And what I want you to remember, this one thing that's going to kind of change the way you think a little bit about your body and your belly fat, is it's not looking for one specific number of like, oh, what number should I be for my calories? But what you need is, you need a number where your body's current metabolic rate and state can actually start to respond. Okay, so I want to say that again. So instead of looking for the like where should I be, what calorie range, what where all of that is I need you to think beyond that. For a menopausal woman, the number and the caloric count you need to be is where your body starts to click and respond. And so that's why this is very specific, and there's a lot of things you need to look at. And as most of my clients know, I don't usually like to give calories near the beginning because I'm looking at a few factors before I actually bring in your calories. Okay. So the number you need is where your body actually starts to click and respond. Okay. So so that's number one. Okay. Now, number two mistake and case study with balloons is I'm going to use 𝗂𝗶𝗱𝗱𝗲𝗀 and Angela Brazil. They're both on this call. How nice. They're going to be stars. Is they get the calories. You guys get the calories. They get the calories into their food, but the combos are not correct. Okay. So what do I mean by this is, so let's just say using Jackie or Angela, once you know your calorie count or somebody's helped you or you know what you're aiming for, that is only one factor, because the next factor involved is understanding, do you actually combine these foods together properly that impacts the signals in your body? So what do I mean? So for example, I remember 𝗂𝗂𝗶𝗱𝗱𝗀𝗃, not right now, but at the beginning when I was observing her, and she was kind of eating as she was like figuring things out, as like she was maybe getting the calories, but I remember her fats ending up being too high, and it becoming as certain things that how she was combining it, it was like the fat started going super, super high. Angela, for you, I think it's you. I could mix you up with someone else, but it was that when you don't fully understand what classifies as a protein macro, what classifies as a carb macro, what classifies as a fat macro, you're going to actually start to misalign your foods together. And so I see that an example I saw is where we're starting to want more protein. We put in the quinoas, we put in the seeds, we put in all these things are good. They're good. The classic I eat healthy type situation. But the biggest problem is now I'm seeing doubling. It could be, I think it's you, Angela, or it might be Kat. I can't remember who it is I spoke about. That you start doubling your carbs, you start doubling your fats. Your understanding of macros is not clean. And this is something I had spoken about with a couple of these clients about your understanding of macros is not clean. So you're actually doubling or tripling your carb ratios and your fat macro ratios without actually knowing it. And this ends up being a very confusing signal for your body. Your body starts being confused and more stressed. And this is another classic. You can be eating healthy, but really it's not in terms of hormonal signals. So kind of talk about the problems with this. For example, when you have incorrect macro combinations in the way you bring together food, it instigates a poor nutrition partitioning. So high fat, high carbs together, seeds and quinoa, all these healthy foods that, yes, it is healthy, but it is not healthy in a hormonal signal. Causes a slower gastric emptying in your body. It prolongs glucose and insulin response. So when you slow gastric emptying and it prolongs a glucose response in your body, for menopausal women, what does that mean? Energy is going to get stored to your belly fat faster. A lot of people don't even think about that. And I forgot who I had said this about. Was it you, Kat, or was it you, Angela? I can't remember. It's just when I meet with multiple, I start to get confused. But it's like I said, look at this quinoa and look at this, look at this combination. You need to be more aware of your macro specifics. And Luisa just learned this with nuts, right? Yeah, nuts, super high fat, has some protein, but it really starts to mess up your macro combos. It's actually the case with Rosalinda. She's no longer, she's so fit now. Like this girl, she competed at 57, Rosalinda. She started gaining massive weight around 60, 61. She came to me around 62. She had a massive bloated belly. She was just really upset because when you've competed, you're been the leanest. You don't know why you still have belly. Something similar to this kind of case study I'm saying. She was mixing a lot of macros that she should not have been mixing together, creating a very inappropriate uh, numbers in the macro nutrient partitioning, even though she tried to eat healthy, you know? And then once we solved that issue, because she used a trainer herself, she was able to fix all the rest, like fix everything else within my program. She went on and now she's super lean and she does skateboarding at 65, 66. Like she does the ramps. Can you believe it? She's like skateboarding on ramps. I'm like, wow, Rosalinda, you are amazing. At 65 or 66 years old, she's super lean and fit now. So there's hope for you. Number one is it's absolutely possible to reverse your entire body to be even more fit than when you were in your 20s and 30s. Okay. So this is an example of the poor nutrition partitioning. Number two, with the problem with like improper macros and not understanding the clean divisions of macros, okay, is hidden overconsumption, which cause to mistracking of macros, right? So a lot of times I see this, and I saw this in one of my clients in January. She kind of only did a little bit of it because she had some issues, personal life issue come up, but she was like, I need to increase protein. And then the classic protein increase. And then suddenly I saw a whole bunch of other things go up incorrectly in her food, and fats and inflammation markers because she was trying to hit a protein marker. Okay. So you have to think like, is the way you're eating creating a fuel environment or a storage environment? And it matters how you combine those macros together. And number three is, and this one I know I did talk to you, Kat, about this. And I also spoke to Kathleen. So both of them are more in muscle building phase. So this is kind of why. But if you don't partition your macros properly, okay, you're going to have insufficient mTOR pathway signaling. So your mTOR pathway, which is your muscle build signal to build more lean muscle in your body, requires, Oshone mentioned this in one of her lives, 2.5 grams of leucine threshold to push that mTOR pathway on. And when you divide and you split things incorrectly, you actually don't get an mTOR signaling and a muscle build signaling that needs to happen for your body. It's why Jackie Bertrand, Kat Wilson, I don't know, Angela, if we've discussed this, but a couple of you, I've been very specific about how that needs to be divided, right? Because that needs to instigate an mTOR pathway to increase the mTOR pathway and a GLUT4. So you want to have more muscle mass, so there's more GLUT4 activation, which moves sugar into muscle cells. If you have better GLUT4 activation, you will have better muscle build as well as less likely to store belly fat. Okay, so this is why you have to think about this. It's not just how much you eat, it's how your body interprets what you eat. And this is kind of why I always say it's beyond just calories. Tammy Linton, okay, obviously I have a lot of examples. When Tammy Linton came to me, she was tracking calories like crazy because she was on a previous program that tracked calories, but she never really tracked macros. And I think that was a big thing because that changed everything because she was trying to control calories so strongly. But remember, she had a big belly when she came to me and she was like diligently tracking everything. But she never really looked carefully at macros. And once we started working through combinations and things like that, I know she worked quite a number of weeks with me on this. Like things started to shift, right? And so I call this menopausal nutrition protocol is, do you know how to combine your foods together? That is not just about the caloric count, but about the macro combination and how they combine, what instigates as more cleaner macros What are cross macros? There are cross macros, but you then need to understand how that works, and then what your body actually needs at this point. Now, Kat talked about me saying about fiber amounts, and fiber amounts are important. It's important at different stages. Maybe not for example, fiber was actually not one of the things I first specifically taught Tammy. Tammy Linton is an insulin resistant belly, and it didn't require the fiber at the beginning. So what I'm saying is you need to know when, at what point you make the changes in the type and ratio of the macros. So I call this whole process the menopausal nutrition protocol. So if you're listening and you're like, well, I kind of track, I'm doing my calories, I'm kind of doing my macros, but I don't know if I'm really combining it exactly proper. I want you to put MNP there as menopausal nutrition protocol. If you relate to one of these ladies, if you relate to one of the stories here, because there's so many different ones that all come back to the same point, right? I mean, I have like hundreds of case studies in my head. So I've been coaching for so long, right? I have hundreds of case studies. I see it all the time. Common mistakes. Yeah. Is this you? Do you identify? You're like, I think I trying to track my macros, but I don't know if it's fully proper combinations and everything. Then put MNP below. Okay. Menopausal nutrition protocol. Number 3. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Listening on Spotify, tap that 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a quick review. It really helps the show reach more women. Okay, I talk about this one a lot. And it's not surprising, but I always have to talk about it, okay? Now, I'm going to use, obviously, case studies that are already here, but, and like, Kat Wilson is eating generally pretty healthy, but she knows I was on her for some of the things. Kathleen Bernath and Tammy Linton. We're going to talk about my lovely case study ladies, okay? The I think I eat healthy trap, right? I get this all the time. We talk to so many women and they are like, well, I think I eat healthy, right? I think I eat healthy. And this is always the little moment of internal smile, right? Oshone, me and you are like, okay, and we understand. Like, we're not saying, look, you only know what you know. You cannot know what you don't know. And I understand. So it's not to say like, oh, yeah, you should know better. I think that you only know what you know. So when something is like, this gives you high protein. This helps you build muscle. This is clean bars. Tammy Linton, I don't think she's on here, but when she first came to me, like I said, she's super diligent. And she was eating these clean bars. And, actually, I have to say the clean bar was relatively clean. It's true compared to a lot of bars. But there were still things that for her situation, it was not so clean. And I think this is the part where it gets most people, because it's like, uh there's so many things that we think we're doing right. Like, I need collagen, I need maybe this pre-workout, or I need this, I need that, because we want to be more healthy. Again, I totally understand, but this puts you in a position for some things that may not be so great for your body. And another example, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, cat is overall very good, but as an example, just because his most recent memory is like, oh, we start using some dressing here, we start using sauces here, and then you start looking in the sauce for this, and then there's like whatever oils in there, and then there's this that has like maybe like fructose syrup or whatever, right? Like, you start little things that you're like, oh, but I eat healthy, I'm eating chicken, I'm eating this, but yet you're adding things that could really disrupt the system. You may be taking and Kathleen is another example that I said I would mention, because she was taking a certain very high, I can't remember, is it a green shake or something? Kathleen will have to put her comment below when she watches this or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's amazing. And it has like reishi, has like all of these amazing herbs, and it's just like the best thing for your body, right? Like, it's like actually kind of good. But the problem is there were a lot of other things within that was really not good. And when I finally helped her with it, she was like, she she went through it with me. And I remember her being like just astounded. And she even wrote on one of her win posts, ladies, this is crazy. You got to read those labels, and the seemingly most healthy products that you think are good for you may not be good for you. And what you think you may be eating healthy has hidden inflammatory markers. And this is what's really, I want you guys to start thinking about from these real case studies of women is that there's a psychological trap. And the psychological trap is I'm not that bad. Like I eat pretty healthy and I'm pretty okay. I think I eat okay, right? And that psychological trap it's a trap because you think, like for example, you feel good. I just bought this, I invested in this green powder that's like $65 and I blah blah blah, like I'm taking protein and protein this and that. And so you psychologically think you're doing everything right. But the problem is you still are holding on to a belly. And so this is kind of why I always say things like just be very cautious about what you ingest, what you don't. And I know Kat kind of knows that. Like she talked with me about like, oh, this one I really want. Like, can you look at this ingredient? And if I really prove it's fine, but sometimes there's even things I'd be like, I still would not, right? Because I'm very particular about certain things can trigger this response or trigger this response. And sometimes it's like I often say, it's not that the direct sometimes the ingredient is may not be inflammatory. Let's just say, okay, like some of the things, maybe even like some of the preservatives, other things, but it changes and alters your gut microbiome. When it changes and alters your gut microbiome, then you potentially have less nutrient uptake from your body. And so I want to just explain a logic so you understand. Like, it's true, not everything inflames your body, okay? But I could categorize it underneath it because if you have an altered microbiome and the microbiome does not uptake, now it shifts what you can process and what you can uptake. And your body is already underfueled. Your body is not getting what it needs. What did I say as the point number one? Point number one is if your body does not get the fuel it needs, it gets a signal of a cortisol induced state. And then it will raise your cortisol. And then it will say, I'm under stress. I'm not getting what I need. Shut down her metabolism, store more fat, etc., etc. Does that make sense? So people like listening, tell me, like, isn't that interesting when you think about the process? It's like, okay, it's not like everything inflames the body, but if Clarice is saying certain things does certain things in the pathway of your body that instigates this to that, then I would consider them hidden inflammation markers or hidden endocrine disruptors. Okay. So I want all of you and the ones who are listening who may still struggle with a belly, who have a belly fat on them, who is still like, I don't know, I think I eat healthy, or like, I don't overeat, I work out, I do all the right stuff, but why do I still have a belly? And I really want you to think about this. You only know what you know. So what is hidden from you that you don't know? So put below if you're like, I need to understand my hidden inflammation markers. Hidden inflammation markers is foundational. Okay, awesome. So now let's go to case study number 4. Okay. All right. So we're going to use Meg and Davi. Maybe a little bit Kappa have already referenced you earlier, but Meg. Okay. So case study number 4 or mistake number 4 is improper distribution of calories and macros. Okay. So I had said earlier about the combination of macros, but I'm actually talking about the distribution, how it is throughout the day. Okay. How food is ingested throughout the day. Okay. So an example with Meg. Okay. Meg is not hungry, like she said in the morning. She was like, I'm not hungry, Clarice. And then she's like, okay, Clarice says I have to eat something. So she takes something in and it's like 180 calories. Okay. You watch throughout her day and I'm like, wow, where does most of her calories go, Meg? Yeah. and she'll smile because she's now fixed this. But it's like, it was like all near the end of her day. And it was like, oh, Meg, is this really good? And she's like, yeah, but I'm not hungry earlier in the day, right? I'm just giving an example of what's actually happening. So she's like shifting where her calories are going and now back loading her calories at the back end. Okay. And so, as you know, this creates major problems, especially no problem for a young teenager, no problem for a 20-year-old. Okay. No problem. But it will be a problem for older women because your body is in storage mode. So when you are backloading most of your calories towards the back end, then you may have a problem. Now, a lot of you be like, oh, no, don't worry. I don't do that. I eat throughout the day. I want to tell you another problem. It's not just that. There's another opposite problem. People front load more of their calories and don't actually eat too much near the end of the day. Now, the opposite problem of this is that you don't give your body what it needs near the end of the day as it is, and like later at night, and then you go to sleep and then you wake up. So this is many hours of your body not getting calories. And for those of you concerned about building muscle, not getting enough muscle building potential. So it's not one or the other. It's about what is the right distribution that you need. And actually, Kat actually is a good example here. She did multiple meals, which I like. I mean, this was something we had worked on even in our first program. But I had said to her that sometimes some of the snacks may not be your best buddy because of how and where it's positioned and what it does it do. One, whether the snacks are balanced or not, but two, the snacks instigate a response in your body, but it doesn't have a great return. You start all this insulin response, but you didn't give it enough protein, and then now there's no protein involved with it, and there's no mTOR pathway with calories in your system. So I mentioned a little bit about her distribution as well for Kat and Meg as well. And the other situation I explained often happens for a woman who are like, okay, yeah, like I'm going to eat more earlier in the day and then like less later in the day. And it's also not totally right. Because if you eat less and less near the end of the day, one, you could have poor sleep, and your poor sleep instigates a cortisol response. You need to eat to create a better potential sleep in your system. You need to know how to distribute those meals properly. So yes, there's a certain theory I once said early in my coaching, this was about almost 5 years ago, that if in the day you need this much protein or carbs or fat, as long as you get it in throughout your day, it's fine. It's totally fine. But that was before I did a very deep dive and research into hormones, okay? That statement is still relatively true for a healthy young person. So, your son, your daughter, or whatever, who can like just eat whatever they want and bam, they still have muscles or they're still lean or whatever, right? When you're young, your body's super flexible to move both ways in and out. When you're older, it's not flexible. And where you partition and distribute your calories really now affects cortisol, affects your sleep, affects insulin response, affects how much mTOR pathway is activated and how much GLUT4 uptake is activated. Okay. So if you're listening to this, I want you to put distribution. If you're like, I don't really understand how to distribute the meals or distribute the calories, the macros throughout the day, I want you to put distribution below. Okay. So it kind of like the way I'm describing some of these problems are about layers. Okay. Like if you don't even get enough calories, like earlier, like I said, let's focus on calories. But if you solve the calorie problem, that doesn't mean you are getting rid of your belly if you don't solve the macro combination problem. If you get the macro combination problem, but if we don't solve the distribution problem, you're going to still have problems with hormone response. Do you understand that there's layers to what's actually happening, that you need to look at the mistakes that are commonly happening, forcing your body into belly fat, I guess putting belly fat on you. So put distribution if you're like, I need to understand this better. So Armenia, see distribution. Awesome. Now I have 3 more case study or case studies to go, for 3 more mistakes to go. So case study number 5. I want to now utilize again Leslie Bennett and Tammy Linton mainly, maybe a little bit of Kat, but I wanted to talk about reason number 5 that you are having, or mistake, is cortisol dysregulation. Okay, this by far I think is one of the biggest one that trips up a lot of people. Cortisol dysregulation. When Leslie came to me, massive cortisol dysregulation, and so was Tammy. These two were massive cases of cortisol dysregulation. And what causes cortisol dysregulation? Number one, there's 2 aspects. One, it's the mindset of needing to guess all the time. Okay, I see this a lot. I'm guessing, I'm guessing, I'm guessing. I try this, I try that. I hodgepodge this one piece to this one piece to one piece, and it's like mismatched sometimes and kind of odd, you know. And I found this, for example, in Leslie. Like it was just over the years she had early menopause, and her system started to dysregulate, and so she was like freaking out. So she's like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, she's going to try this, you know. And it just caused her system to go into a standstill, because it was like, I don't like this. Like, one moment you're doing this, and then the next moment you're doing this, and then you're shifting this, and then you're adjusting this. And then I remember Leslie telling me she tried everything. Like, she tried everything when she came to me. She's like, I tried everything, Clarice. It does not work. And I'm like, that's the problem. You've tried everything, you know, like, and I'm smiling because I understand. Okay, I'm not, I know it's hard in your situation because you just want to do something, right? But it's like she was shifting this and was trying like lower carbs, then she was trying to like adjust her calories and then like monitor her calorie down. Then she was like, oh, Clarice said protein, so she's like massively increased her protein. And then she was like blah 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 blah, all this type of stuff. And it was like, when I met her, I was like looking at her belly, I'm like, okay, clearly you have a very cortisol based belly, like the shape I could tell. And she was stuck. Like, no matter what she did, her body would not respond. It was basically, I could classify her, Leslie and Tammy, both these cases were very unresponsive. Like, you know, when in medical, they're like, unresponsive casualty. I would literally say, with a joking kind of tone, Leslie Bennett and Tammy Linton were unresponsive casualties. Like, their body would not respond. You do this, it just nothing happens. They plateau, it stays the same. And this is the thing, is one thing that I have taught both Leslie and Tammy a lot. And I know Kat is, she'll recognize herself in here a little bit, but she's very good. Like, she's very, her mindset is good. Kat is very good with this. Is unless your body feels safe, your body will not let you shift. It's designed to protect you. So if you are shifting things all over the place, changing this, changing that, adding this, adding a new supplement, adding this, you know, and I can actually talk about Kathleen Bernath, the one that I posted on Monday. She was taking all these supplements from the holistic practitioner, which I understand, but her body has shifted over a year's time, already not needing at the therapeutic doses that she was on certain things. It was now causing more noise in her body than necessary, more systematic noise of like this and this and this. And so unless your body feels safe, it will not shift. And this is the thing that I see often, is we want to see change so fast that we keep changing things quickly. And one of the things I had to keep teaching Tammy a lot was, gotta slow down, okay? I'm not shifting anything this week. But she's like, but can you shift more things? Or like, but what about this? And what about that? And I know she wanted to learn, and it was really great, but I had to really slow her down and be like, I'm not going to shift anything right now. Let's work in this consistency at this moment. So what I mean by this is that you have to really, one of the mistakes I see is this constant cycle of, I need to do this. I need to do this. What do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? Which and often I find with a situation like people wanting to lose belly fat, will look for the next tip exactly on this live. What is the next thing I need to do in order to drop my belly fat? And one of the things I would challenge you, and a mindset shift I'm going to challenge you, is what do I need to do less of? Not do more of, but do less of. What do I need to do less of, not more of? And that is actually one of the biggest breakthroughs for a lot of menopausal women is stop doing so much, find 1 to 2 things that is the biggest needle movers for your body, and then you need to give it time to stabilize, to switch, okay? And this is called menopausal phasing. uh, in my approach, I don't usually explicitly explain it, but I actually call it the refeed, reset, redial methodology. So through in a body that has been underfed or not given the right signals, you really want to put them into a situation where they have like a refeed zone and healing the situation, healing the body. And then you switch the phasing into a reset, meaning it needs to reset its metabolic signals, which was both Leslie and Tammy's situation because they were both at a complete standstill. Like nothing was shift for them. And in the initial phases where it was refeeding all of this signals, they again at the beginning was like it seemed slow, nothing was really shifting. And I said, just hold on, it's going to shift. And then it hit into the shift phase. Yeah, I think both of them were similar. I think both of them were around week 5, 6. Both of them, it would hit into a reset zone. And once it hits into a reset zone, it it's crazy what you see. You start to see lots of things. Like Leslie's like, oh my gosh, I'm really hungry now. I think I shared this with you guys. I was like, she went from being like, I'm not hungry. I'm gonna throw up if I eat anything more. To be like, Clarice, Kat, you relate to this from your first program. Clarice, I'm hungry. And she keeps coming back week 7, week 9, week 10. I'm talking about Leslie right now, Leslie Bennett, who went from a 37-inch waist to a 27-inch waist. Kept coming back to me and being like, Clarice, I'm actually really hungry now. I'm really hungry. So the reset phase was really interesting. Yeah, because her body was now, all the signals were switching, all the signals were changing. And this is what's so cool, obviously, when you are a coach and you've done this and you know what's going to happen, is it's like the body completely switches its control panel. The control panel like lights up, the switchboard changes. And this is yeah, Kat says she's still always hungry, which is great, right? Like her signals are coming back in. So there's refeed, reset, and then redial. Now, the redialing phase, again, in the menopausal phasing, is later in your phase, meaning once it has stabilized signals and it's dropping your inches, your weight, your belly fat, then what kind of signals do you want the body to continue to have to keep to sustain the continued um the continued drop, or if it hits another, let's say another mini plateau, how to redial that out. Okay, so that's a little bit higher level. But typically most of my clients who come to me are in a refeed reset stage. Redial, I'll say those are my MAs, my muscle accelerators. Like Kathleen Bernath right now is definitely in a redial phase, right? She's really building muscle right now. And and Kamiko Simpson is another redial phase, really high level, like really minor tweaks I make. But if you have belly fat, your hormones are dysregulated, you get your hormone panels, your thyroid is off, or your cortisol is slightly off, or all of that, you would be in the refeed reset phase. Okay. So, what I want those of you who are listening is understanding that if you're constantly guessing, you're going to cause a lot of cortisol dysregulation in your body, and this doesn't help you. It basically keeps you stuck. And you need to also learn maybe from these case studies. Okay, when you think about these case studies, there is periodization. periods where it makes sense that you're going to keep going in this period before shifting something out. And this is why it's called menopausal phasing. It's called periodization. Periodization occurs through different levels of fitness and wellness. Oshone as a personal trainer, me as a personal trainer, if Jane is on here, we know that when we train someone and we build someone's program, it's called periodization. If we want to do it right, there's periodizations in their workout training. But I want you to remember there's periodization within your body as well, in their hormonal phases. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, I think I struggle with a lot of cortisol dysregulation or guessing and the mind guessing situation, I want you to put the menopausal phasing below, meaning you want to understand better how the phasing works for your body. Menopausal phasing, okay? I want to also bring up Kat, because Kat wrote in one of her win posts, I think she said this to me, that I think the biggest thing for her after struggling for 2 years on her own is not needing to guess anymore and to feel like she's finally in good hands and she could just trust the process. And I think that takes a massive load off the brain here, a massive load that shifts your cortisol regulation. Okay. This changes your patterns, your thought process, your cortisol levels, and your cortisol level related to insulin. Because again, if you constantly shift things in your body, your insulin shifts as well. Right. So it's like you want to learn about menopausal phasing. You want to stop guessing. This is the thing I see as a big problem, is always guessing. And the thing is not that, you may get to, it's kind of like this, okay? It's like, I think of a game, here's the finish line and here's you, okay? And there is all these, like, the game has little roadblocks and like dragons and blah blah blah, right? There's you, and you're like, oh, okay, so I'm going to go right, and then ow, I stepped on something. Oh, I got hit. I got my leg got eaten by a dragon. Okay, I'll go right, and then I'll like go over here, and oops, I dropped into a pothole. I have to climb my way out of the pothole. So it's like just so inefficient. Your poor body is like being abused as it's trying to get to the finish line. I mean, you may progress a little bit, but it's a little bit inefficient and very ineffective. You kind of hurt yourself along the way. Whereas when you have the understanding menopausal phasing, it's like where you're starting at the start line, and then it's like there's the person who got to the other side safely. That's like, okay, turn right, go straight, then turn left. Now go around the pothole, and then jump through the window so you don't hit the dragon, and then and then you get to the finish line faster and in one piece. Okay, so I'm hoping that makes you smile a little bit. I'm just thinking of the Mario like game sounds in my head right now, but it's just basically that. Like I feel like some of you are playing like this, like how many lives do I have to die over and over again before I get to the finish line? And in the little game, like Mario, like you have 9 lives, kind of thing. And I think you have to remember is you still will progress probably at some point, but how long and how many times and how many, times are you going to kind of hurt your body trying to get there? Right. So I just think like really thinking about that, the menopausal phasing, put that if you want to stop guessing. This is actually a very common, both Leslie and Tammy. I mean, Leslie's results, and Tammy has amazing results too. But Leslie is like a star client, right? Obviously, because of her results, sort of like Kathleen, like very few people can go from a 37-inch waist to a 27-inch waist. Like that is like wow, right? Like that's like a wow factor, right? And if I had to tell you one of the biggest, like as a coach, her biggest reason was her cortisol dysregulation. And once we can fix her cortisol dysregulation, her body started to respond so fast. Yeah. So again, like I said, if you're thinking there, you're like, I think I need some help with regulating this cortisol, definitely put menopausal phasing. Okay. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Listening on Spotify, tap that 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a quick review. It really helps the show reach more women. Case study number 6. Okay, so the next kind of mistake I see very commonly is delaying help and the consequence of belly fat accumulation. I'm going to explain this, okay? So, what I see as a coach and who understands different types of belly fat shapes and hormone signaling. As you guys know, there's 6 types of belly fat shapes that really signal different things in your body, okay? So, I want to talk about this because this is something that I think many people may not even realize, and it's going to be another aha moment for you. Okay. In my experience of looking at most women and having coached so many menopausal women, most women, as they come to me, start exhibiting, especially if they are like getting older. So like 60, 65, 70, blah, blah, blah. Like as they're getting older, they exhibit multiple combination bellies. So that's the first thing I want you to understand is combination belly. So I'm starting to see not one type, but multiple types of bellies together. And I've even talked on consults with women who come to me like, I watch your 6 types of belly fat, Clarice. I don't know. I was listening. I was like check marking. I think I'm this, and I think I'm this, and I think I'm this, right? And the thing is, they're not imagining it. So I want to talk about this is the problem is your belly fat starts as a simple problem. So some of you are like, what? Your belly fat starts as a simple problem. But when you don't deal with that simpler problem, it becomes layered with the next problem. It's a cascade effect. And then you don't deal with that, it becomes layered with the next problem. And what happens is I have seen that, for example, when Leslie struggled for a number of years from when she had early menopause to getting on medication the doctor gave her to trying to figure out how to lose weight by herself over 2-3 years, the belly type started stacking on. Okay, so this is problematic because you want to deal with the belly fat earlier, not later when it starts to accumulate into other versions of belly fat types or hormone signals. Okay. I am going to use Kat as an example here. Kat is really, she's very smart and she's really cares about her health. She always wants to be like fit and she wants like that body that looks like I'm ready to conquer, you know? She's smart because she tried to figure out a little bit on her own, but as soon as she knew she couldn't, she came back for help because I said to her, she knows this, she was exhibiting another type of belly fat starting to come in because her first type of belly fat that she had, which is cortisol induced and a lot of injuries, all that, hormonal belly in the front was already dysregulating quite a bit. And if she didn't handle that, her body was already starting to deposit internal visceral fat, which is the beginning of insulin resistance. But she's smart. She's getting help very fast, very early in her stage because she's in her early 50s, so that she will not push into the other levels of fat. But I'm going to give you an example. So exactly like Tammy, who waited, and then she became like 3 different kinds of belly fat involved, and Tammy Linton as well. Like, so when Tammy came to me, Tammy is in 64, 65, something like that. But she has already been trying a long time by herself, and she has bloated belly, cortisol belly, insulin resistant belly with a potential start of the estrogen dominance. Okay, so I'm going to explain why. Okay, I'm going to explain it so that you guys actually understand like what is happening. The easiest layer to tackle is actually cortisol belly. cortisol hormonal belly, hormonal could be thyroid belly. So cortisol. Cortisol is the easiest to tackle because that is the top layer. That layer is the fastest to be able to drop. For example, Jane on here, when she came to me, she didn't have massive belly. She just had a little bit of cortisol belly because she does lead a pretty high stress life and how she eats throughout the day. That is the easiest layer to tackle, okay, to shift. And when you hit cortisol and help someone understand inflammation markers, a lot of the surface inflammation, a lot of the top layers start to drop. That's why you see a lot of my clients within the first few weeks have really amazing results. 6, 7, 8, 9 inches come off their body. And that's because cortisol is the easiest to handle. The problem is when you don't handle cortisol belly early on and you don't learn to control it. Cortisol has a massive response line to insulin, right? And insulin as well as thyroid. Now, cortisol will affect a lot of other situations. So, for example, if cortisol is chronically elevated, it is going to inhibit thyroid conversion. And pretty soon, your metabolism and things I've explained above can start to slow down. So we went from cortisol belly to thyroid belly, which is a hormonal belly as well, but a different type of hormonal belly in that the metabolism is slowed down from the cortisol's induced cortisol effect. Then the induced cortisol effect influences the insulin, the thyroid in this case. And then the lowered metabolism, the increase in cortisol now impacts further the insulin response because the insulin response is connected, right? If you have high cortisol, cortisol shifts your carbs out of your muscle cells and into your bloodstream. That is one of the roles of cortisol because you need to fight the bear or run away. So it will shift your carb loading out of your cells into your bloodstream. And now you have a problem. Now you didn't deal with cortisol right away. You didn't learn to deal with your thyroid situation. Now we have a lot of sugar in your bloodstream. Your body's going, oh my gosh, we have a lot of blood. We have a lot of this. Where is this going to go? Oh yeah, the magnet system. The magnet system is the belly. All those receptors, yay! And all the happy guys, all the happy sugars run over to your belly. And they start to run over to your belly, start to stick into the belly. And they start to stick into the belly, into the visceral fat area, like cat, and it can start to show thickening of your waistline. When dealt with early, it's not a big issue, but as it starts to accumulate, as you heard from my other live, your estrogen has a cyclical cycle. E1 has a cyclical cycle that actually then says, oh, well, more fat, so more estrogen production. Yeah, so let's produce more E1 into our system through this aromatizations in the center of the belly. So now you have more E1 entering the system and also more fat accumulation signaling. But the problem is that depot itself is now increasing, and the depot now produces not only more E1 but more inflammatory cytokines and chemokines, which I spoke about in my last visceral fat live. Now you have a depot that now recycles even faster inflammatory markers in your system. So you went from only originally a cortisol belly to potentially a thyroid belly to potentially a start of insulin resistance to an increasing rate of insulin resistance to now a potential for estrogen dominance because now E1 is entering the system more rapidly with maybe not enough of recycling out of the E1 system. Now you are now complicating it into it now becoming insulin resistance to the hints of estrogen dominance due to the fact of poor insulin response, due to the fact that you didn't handle you didn't actually handle before the situation with the cortisol and the hormone signal. So what I'm trying to explain, and it can keep going, I can tell you the whole cycle realm of what happens. And it is why, for example, when Tammy came to me, she had almost all 4 types of belly fat. But I knew that which one had caused which one, and we need to shift which one. And so one of the major mistake I see is when you're in menopause and you constantly Well, the reason before is you're playing a Mario game, first of all, so you just keep hurting yourself or delaying. But there is a consequence to delaying. The consequence is you delay, you are gonna start to stack the types of belly fat in your system, and then how visceral fat, and then it affects subcutaneous fat, and then like the surface level fat, and there's more to it, right? There's could be this whole cycle. And so I really strongly encourage that you don't delay it, you get the help sooner so you don't stack belly types. The more you stack belly types, the harder it is and the longer it will take you to try to drop. It will take a lot more to shift this belly. And so if you're listening and you're like, I don't want to keep accumulating different belly types. And when I say belly types, it's like shapes that indicate about what's happening in your body. I want you to put belly type below. If you're like, okay, I really need to learn my belly type and I need to address that, because this is kind of why a lot of the some of the older women, some of the harder bellies that are coming to me now, they're much harder. They are much harder. And insulin resistance belly is one of the hardest types to shift. Okay. So don't wait for your body to get to these stages of levels of belly fat before trying to shift it as early as possible. As like I said, Kat Wilson is a good example because she is shifting it now, because I had already with what she showed me on our call, I could already see she was starting to get a little bit of the thickening of the waist, and I'm like, oh no, we got to change this now while we can control her cortisol as much as possible. Okay, so please put below, if you're listening and you're like, I don't want to delay waiting, put belly type, because you need to identify what type you are. And then use the appropriate approach for your belly to target it. Okay, so put belly type below. And then the last reason here is case study number 7. So the last one is also something I speak a lot about, and it kind of ties everything together. Okay, is the last mistake I see is infobese. Okay. Now, I did speak about this earlier, but I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically. So, it happens the most to smart driven women. Okay. Smart driven women want knowledge. I coach a lot of nurses, let me tell you. Nurses love working with me because they know I know the science behind things. It's awesome. Very brilliant woman, very strong, right? But there's also a disadvantage to some of the women who come to me. They're so into the research. They're so into the information, and it really gets them into, I need to learn more. I need to learn more. I need to learn more. What is Clarice going to tell me today? Last time she said GLUT4. This time she's going to say like DNA alpha 2N45. And then next time she's going to say chemokines that then relates to like, cytokines, and like, it's cool, right? Like, it's like, okay, awesome. I like all of this. But what happens is that this will create you wanting to always learn, but never really having a clear, specific strategy with no clear signal to your body. So, example, like you asked, Luz, was it you who asked? But like, okay, I'm insulin resistance. Maybe you are like, I think I'm insulin resistant, so I need to go like lower carbs, right? So you're like, I think I need to be lower carbs. So you're thinking I need lower carbs, and then you're like, oh yeah, but Clarice said high protein, so I need to go high protein, and then I need to add this to my workout because she says MTP needs certain things in the workout process. Okay, so the conflicting inputs from all the different information is creating no clear signal to the body, and the body just can't adapt, and it stays the same. So we become just always about gathering info and not actually doing anything that is specific to our body that is a one clear path. Okay. The second thing is that infobese creates cognitive overload. Okay, so this happens a lot, and I know um, I like research a lot, yeah, and I'm the same. But you could get into a cognitive overload phase. So the cognitive overload is like okay, let me listen to more of Clarissa's lives and podcasts. And as I learn more about this podcast and about visceral fat and about estrogen shifts and about thyroid hormones, then magically my belly fat will disappear. And we all know, we all stop for a second to go, I don't think so, right? And so too much information creates decision fatigue. It creates overthinking, and it replaces consistency. So what do I mean by that is knowing more but doing less, like knowing more but doing less effectively is not can't give you the results. So you know a lot, but you don't know what exactly is the path for you, and this creates cognitive overload, and it delays you a lot. It will go, okay, look, I'm going to do the next 4-week challenge. Oh wait, like I'm going to do the next 5-week challenge. Oh wait, I'm going to listen to the next season of podcast Clarice is going to do. It's great, but how likely and how much is it really changing that belly fat situation? And I always say this, if it really is that you are absolutely changing your belly fat, and because I see different situations like this, if you have a belly fat situation where maybe it's not super complex, it is possible you can maybe apply a few tips and it could change. It's true. However, a lot of the women I know, because of the situation or their hormone testing coming back and it's indicating this and this and this stuff about their bodies, it is complex. There's something more to it. And the problem is when you delay and you keep trying to be like, I need more information, you actually create a procrastination situation. Okay. This procrastination actually completely delays your results and puts like more belly fat on you, basically, because you're just waiting and playing around with the whole game, right? And the last thing with the info beast is, like I said, it keeps you in this false learning mode. Okay, it takes away true stabilization. So I want you to think learning mode and stabilization. Learning is over here, stabilization is over here. The only way you can reach stabilization over here is if you actually uh, create an implementation pathway that implements something where you can stabilize. But if you're always sitting over here with information, then I have my hormone test, and I have this, then this expert said this, then I said this, then the podcast said this, and your information is sitting here, but there you haven't reached any stage where you can stabilize anything. And as a menopausal woman, you need to think stabilization, cortisol control, insulin control. How do you stabilize something that has no pathway yet? This is the problem I see, is that when we're trying to learn and keep learning and with no actual implementation, we run into this issue. Now, this is not the situation for, some people, like I know Kat is learning, but she's sought a plan. Angela Brazil is on here. She's learning. She loves learning, but she sought a plan. So they all know, oh, Kat has certain things she needs to work on for me in her program that I told her, okay, yes, let's keep working at it. Let's stabilize. Angela Brazil, I said to you, Jackie Burchard, I said to you, these are certain things you need to continue to work on and stabilize. So when you are actually doing these things, you are actually moving yourself forward. So that's what you want to think is, am I stabilizing something, or am I just constantly learning? Because they're not the same thing. Okay. Am I constantly learning, or am I trying to stabilize something? And if you're ready to stabilize something, I want you to put stabilization, because this is what's going to make the difference. It's like implementation stabilization is the difference versus just learning. And I would say, yes, I love learning. I'm going to give you a really good example that's out of context of the fitness world. Like, I love learning. I love obviously listening to Tony Robbins and different things. And, for my previous mentoring kind of coaches, I actually still listen to things on from their channels. I love it. I actually get motivated all the time. I listen. But there's one thing I always say is like, I listen and I'm like, okay, it's good. I'm not going to over listen here. I need to go do some stuff. I need to implement. I need to be on the floor working on this or doing this, or because I know it's such a feel good realm. It's such a feel good realm of like, I'm doing it. I'm listening. I'm feeling motivated by these coaches, by these mentors. But if you actually really look at it, okay, if you think about Tony Robbins and even the mentors that I know, there's always only a top 5% of people who truly succeed in those realms. Like really strong entrepreneurs, real people who actually achieve true financial freedom, real people who truly achieve like the top notch body that is like the level of like, like you see on stage. Usually it is only a top 5%. And I will tell you the difference between that 5% and the other 95% are the people who actually don't just like learn and just listen to podcasts and just enjoy all the podcasts in the world. They actually fail forward. They learn, they get guidance, they get coaching, they try new methods, and they try to stabilize an implementation method, and they do it. Sometimes it may need some adjusting, but they are willing to actually do the process. That is the difference. That's why you see only a few people are truly financially free. You only see only a few people who are truly like really amazingly like in peak physique, and top entrepreneurs only exist for 5% of the world. This is true for any success industry. So you need to ask yourself from these case studies, which are you? Are you the 95% or are you the 5%? Are you the 95% that like kind of sits there and kind of feels pretty good, that learns a little bit, that progresses a little bit? Or are you the 5% that's like, I need results? I need results. I need to get to the results and I need to implement. That is the difference between the people I see in the top realms of entrepreneurship, of like fitness, of whatever of their game. That is the difference. So put below for yourself, this is an identity situation. It's an identity situation. Are you the top percent or are you the 95%? Put it below in the comments. Which one are you? And it takes active effort. It's very easy to slip back to the 95. Are you the 5% or are you the 95? Okay, so put that below. So the very last thing that I'm going to say here is part of the same point here is that at some point more information stops being helpful and it starts becoming the thing that keeps you stuck. And that's why this live particularly, I purposely didn't add a lot of science. I mean, there was science because I know my stuff inside out, flipped around in my head, and can do it in my dreams. But like, it's like, I didn't really try to go into just science. I really want you to like hear what I'm saying. It's not about knowing the next allele 95674 and the next like insulin growth factor 1358. Like, it really isn't. It's about what is the path and implementation pathway that gets you and your body and your belly fat to your results for your belly type. Which one do you have? Do you have cortisol and estrogen dominance belly? Do you have cortisol and thyroid belly? Do you have cortisol and insulin resistant belly? Or do you have all 4 types of belly? That matters, right? This is what you need to understand. So put results. I see Kat Wilson said, I need results. I won't stop. Yes. And Kat, that's why I believe you are one of those top 5%. Kathleen Bernath, Leslie, oh my goodness, Leslie Bennett. I mean, the ones who are really like driven for results, you're going to be in those top percentages, right? And showing you results. Exactly. So I'm going to wrap this up with one last thing. Okay. And by the way, like before I log, this is important. You want to stick for this one line, but I want you to put below, don't log off without telling me what you love learning the most or what was an aha moment for you. I want you to put it below. I love reading the comments afterwards, even though it doesn't show up on the circle. I have the transcript. Like when I close the The live, I get the transcript, so I can read what you write. So I actually like reading. What is an aha moment? What is a light bulb moment you had today? Please write it below. I see the 5%, the pathway results. Exactly. That's what you guys are going to get the results, the ones who said they're the 5%. Okay, so while you're writing this, I'm going to give you this one line to think about. So after all 7 mistakes or case studies, okay, people will be like, okay, so like I understand now, like what do I need to do, or how can I think about this properly? So I want you to think about it properly. I'm going to give you this like one line to think about, okay? In order for you to fully drop your belly fat and to be like lean, mean and sculpted. That's just a saying. Don't be mean. Just be lean and sculpted. Okay. Or have a 27-inch waist again, or something like that. Okay. What is the formula? Okay. The formula is you must identify the belly type you have. If you don't know it, get help. Come to us, talk to us. You identify the type of belly fat you have. Next, you need to implement MNP, which is menopausal nutrition protocols. Everything I said above about all the nutrition philosophies and steps need to be applied. MNP. You then need to apply to MTP, which is menopausal training protocol, meaning how are you going to properly build muscle, which influences belly fat, because the more muscle you have, the more carb uptake it takes away from your belly fat area. Not directly, but in the pathway. So you need to identify the type of belly fat you have. You need to implement MNP. You then need to, the nutrition protocols, you then need to implement the right MTP, the right training protocols for maximum muscle growth. You then need to be in this process, the proper periodization and stabilization, meaning you need to know how to stabilize the periods of which section you're in and how long to stay in each one. And then finally dialing it all together for your maintenance level. Okay. So that is the actual formula. It's not a secret, but it is procedural. You can see it's a process. You have to understand the layers within it. So I'm going to say it again. Okay. For everybody listening, you want to drop that belly fat permanently and like get it onto, like, you always have this lean, fat, flat belly. You need to identify the belly type you currently hold. You need to then implement MNP, menopausal nutrition protocols. You then need to implement MTP, which is menopausal training protocol, knowing what types of training to instigate the best muscle growth, to take away the belly fat from the carbs from the belly fat area, to entering a proper periodization for your body, for your menopausal body, of which periods you need, for how long, and how much to stabilize it before switching the signal, and then dialing those specific signals together to give you a maintenance level. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. That's your key line at the end. Awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is like a gold mine here, if you can really understand what I'm saying about the process of fully dropping your belly fat. And like, if you are like, I just need help, I need guidance, drop help or guidance below. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And it's always a pleasure serving all of you. And I will see you in a couple weeks. I think next week will be 𝗕𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃. Okay, awesome. See you all. Love you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.